I've got to say, in all honesty, it's the biggest piece of dog shit.
Why do you come?
Alright boys and girls, I hope you're having a lovely day, okay? Today boys, I want to talk about Cyberpunk 2077, okay? One of the most controversial games to ever release. I'm not sure there's ever been a video game that's released with as much hype as Cyberpunk 2077, okay? When this game was coming out, like, this was like the talk of the town. This is what everyone was talking about. And when it finally released, I don't think I've seen so many people be disappointed, okay? I mean, a lot of people were very, very upset with the way this game was released, and kind of rightfully so, because, I mean, it was a bit of a state. This game was ridiculously buggy. It just genuinely didn't work on lower gen consoles. Like, it was all over the place when it released, okay? And again, people were not happy.
You're a fucking disappointment.
However, CD Projekt Red have been working on this game for a good few years now, and I feel like this game is finally at the point where it should have been when it released. And the game is pretty much now bug-free. Obviously, it is a little bit glitchy here and there, but for the most part, there's not too many glitches. Everything in the game works properly. There's a lot more features in the game now. It's a lot deeper than it used to be. And I feel like it's at a point now where there's pretty much no excuses not to play this game, because it's really freaking good, lads. If you haven't played Cyberpunk, you really need to. This game is honestly incredible, and it is the perfect time to jump on board now with the new DLC that's just came out, Phantom Liberty. And obviously we had a new patch update as well, which has added a load of new features, and the game is just as good as it's ever been. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of this video, boys, I do actually want to kind of talk about my experience with Cyberpunk, you know, because I talked about all the glitches and stuff like that, but that's not kind of what I experienced when this game came out. So let's rewind the clock a little bit, boys, okay? We're going back to 2020, okay? So the game has finally released, okay? And I was super duper hyped for this. I don't think I've ever been as hyped for a game as I was for Cyberpunk, and I'm not really like entirely sure why. I just thought it couldn't be bad. I thought there was no way, you know. I really like The Witcher 3, and I just love the setting of Cyberpunk, you know. I love movies like Ghost in the Shell and Akira. Anything that's like a dystopian future, sci-fi sort of thing, you know, anything like Blade Runner, things like that, I just immediately love, okay? And of course, Cyberpunk is all about that. So right out the get-go, I was just ridiculously hyped for this game. I thought, yep, it's going to be incredible. And again, it released, and, you know, it wasn't looking that great. And I was a little bit taken aback by that, you know. I was a little bit like, oh, for fuck's sake, I really had my high hopes for this game, you know. And it released, and yeah, people were saying bad things about it. Nevertheless, boys, I still wanted to get this game, okay? I didn't get it on day one, but maybe like a couple of weeks later, I did pick it up, okay? So I didn't play this game on the first day. I imagine it was absolutely awful on day one. I imagine it was glitchy and ridiculous. But I did get it a couple of weeks later, and honestly, like, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be, you know. After hearing what everyone had said about it, I was expecting it to be a ridiculous buggy mess that was broken and you couldn't play it, you know, especially the PS4 one, which is the one I picked up. Now, I think it's worth mentioning that I've never actually played it on a PS4. I did play this on the PS5 backwards compatibly, so, you know, apparently that does fix the performance issues a lot. But yeah, when I popped it in, I was playing it, and it was a little bit buggy here and there, but nothing too ridiculous. You know, I have seen worse bugs in other games. I got a couple of hard crashes that happened, but I think it was only maybe like 3 times that happened in my entire playthrough. But my overall experience, to be honest with you lads, was pretty positive, to be honest. Like, I did really, really enjoy it. It wasn't as good as I expected it to be, you know, before it came out, but it was still pretty good. It had a great story. I really enjoyed the gameplay. I liked the different builds that you could do. I loved all the different characters in the game, especially my boy Johnny Silverhand. I absolutely love him.
If I need your body, I'll fucking...
The soundtrack absolutely slapped. So the actual world itself was stunning. All in all, I just had a really good time with it, and I couldn't really understand why it was getting shit on so badly. I could understand some of the criticism with the game, but people were acting like it was the worst game to ever come out, and I didn't really understand that, you know, because bugs and glitches aside, it was still a very, very good game. So anyway, boys, I beat the game, okay, and at that point, I've put it on the shelf, and I've said, okay, I'm probably not going to play this for a good while. You know, I don't usually replay games for at least 4 to 5 years, but there's a little thing called Cyberpunk Edge Runners that came out, okay, and honestly, I wasn't that excited for it. You know, I thought an anime around a video game, that's probably not going to be that good, so I kind of overlooked it at first, but I kept hearing how good Cyberpunk Edge Runners was, and I was like, you know what, I'll just watch it. You know, I've got nothing better to do, so I watched it on Netflix, obviously, and it's hands down one of my favorite animes I've ever watched. It's that good. It was way better than it had any right to be, okay? I thought it did an incredible job with the Cyberpunk license, and at that point, I wanted to play the game again, you know, so I didn't play it through, like, from the beginning, but I did pick up my old save, and I started doing some side missions and stuff, and I spent about a week playing this game again, and I really did start to enjoy it a lot more than I did originally, even though I did enjoy it originally, but I just loved it when I started playing it again. I just really started to appreciate the world that CD Projekt Red had built, you know, and I just really enjoyed being in this world, and especially some of the side missions in this game that I completely missed on my first playthrough. I would seriously recommend it if you haven't already, lads, like going through some of these side missions, because some of them are honestly, in my opinion, better than the main quests. They're that good. Like there's one where I can't even remember, it was like a serial killer that had people trapped in this like weird machine that would, I don't even want to get into it, it was so fucked up and weird, and I can't even remember what was going on, but if you've played it, you know exactly what I mean. I'm probably showing you a little bit of gameplay on the screen I can't remember, it was fucked up anyway. But point being, lads, I really started to appreciate this game more and more as time went on, and obviously they kept updating it and making it better and better and better, and this game has just now become a really, really good game that I can come back to often. But anyway, boys, enough about that. Okay, let's talk about what they've actually brought to the table recently. Okay, so obviously the big thing is that they've done a massive patch, which we'll get onto, and then they've also added a DLC called Phantom Liberty. Now, I don't want to get onto the DLC too much because I don't want to spoil it for anyone that hasn't played it. I've played it for about 3 or 4 hours, so I'm fairly far into it, but not too far. And again, I won't spoil any of the story because I know a lot of you guys wouldn't have played it yet, but I will say it's very, very good. So if you were a bit on the fence about it, it is a really good story that I would definitely recommend. Plus, it's got Idris Elba in it, you know, so if you're not already sold, then now you should be. Whilst we're on the topic of the DLC, boys, basically it does take place in a completely new area to the original game. Obviously, the original game was all in Night City, whereas this one is in a town called Dogtown. As much as I love Night City, lads, and I think it's absolutely stunning, I think Dogtown does rival it in so many ways. Like, I think it's definitely as good as, if not maybe slightly better than Night City in some ways. It's a really torn apart town, you know, it feels very, very post-apocalyptic, and it really does remind me of Akira. And in fact, when you first actually get to Dogtown, there's like this massive stadium that you're in, and it's all been torn to pieces. It almost feels like it's directly pulled from Akira.
That man's an imposter!
So yeah, I really, really enjoyed the setting of Dogtown. I thought they did a brilliant job with it, and it was very, very different to Night City, which I'm happy about, because, you know, if it felt the same, then it would have sort of defeated the point. But it was very, very different, but amazing in its own way. But yeah, enough about the DLC, boys, because again, I don't actually want to get into it and start spoiling it. But yeah, the DLC so far, from what I've played, is really, really good, and I would recommend it. It's not the cheapest DLC, I will say that. It's about 25 quid, which is quite a lot for DLC. You know, usually you want to pay, I don't know, like £8 to £10 for added content. But to be fair, I think it's like fairly decently lengthed, so it kind of does make sense, but still, 25 quid is a lot of money. But yeah, let's talk about the actual patch update, boys, okay, because this is completely free to anyone that owns the game, okay? You don't have to pay for this. And they've just added a ton of new improvements to this game that, honestly, I think it's like pretty mind-blowing how much they've added. So first things first, lads, there's a completely new perk system here, okay? It's been completely overhauled from the old one. And it does mean if you're loading up like an old save like I was, then you are going to have to redo all of your perks, which is a little bit annoying, but at the same time, I kind of enjoy all of that stuff. And there's honestly just a ton of like really cool perks here. Like there's one where you can do like air dashing, and you can like dash through the air, and honestly, it makes the movement so fun now. And there's one where if you're using like katanas and samurai swords, which I love doing in Cyberpunk, I just feel like they're really fun to use, but if you have them, you can actually now block and deflect bullets, which is super duper fun to use, lads. I must admit, I was quite bad at using it, but I did get a couple of nice deflects out there. Yeah, just a ton of new upgrades now, which is great, and yeah, it's super fun to obviously upgrade your character and try different perks out. I love all that stuff. You can now use your weapons whilst in a vehicle, which is completely new. Like if you're driving a car, you can obviously like lean out the window and start shooting at people, which is, I mean, it's pretty damn fun, I must admit. And if you're using a motorcycle, you can even like samurai sword people, which, I mean, it's probably not the best way to do it. You're probably just better off getting off your bike. It's probably a lot easier, but it's definitely fun. The police system has now been massively improved, okay? I mean, the police system in the base game was honestly kind of pathetic. Like they just kind of spawned out of nowhere, which is kind of ridiculous, and it was just kind of bad. And also they were just really easy to escape. Like you could literally just walk into a shop and they would just disappear and not chase you anymore. Whereas now it's almost like the GTA system with like the wanted. So obviously the more chaos and destruction you're causing around the city, like if you're doing loads of bad stuff and getting that wanted level up super high, the police are damn hard to defeat. Like they get really, really hard, and there's not much you can do really. They'll just kick your ass. Another one of the changes in this patch now is that like the armor system is completely different. So before, you would kind of pick up different clothing items and that would be linked to your armor. And honestly, this was a massive problem with like the base game, like when it first came out, because you'd obviously want to try out cool outfits, but obviously you had to think about armor, and sometimes you would just look absolutely ridiculous because you'd obviously want the higher armor, but then it'd be linked to your clothes. They did eventually patch it so that you would have like a hologram clothing outfit, so you could actually pick the clothes that you wanted and it wouldn't be linked to the armor. However, now they've completely changed it entirely to where the armor is actually linked to your cyberware, which honestly just does make a ton of sense. Okay, so now like clothes have nothing to do with armor, you just pick them up and choose your outfits as you would. And obviously if you want to upgrade your armor, then you basically have to find like materials and stuff, so it's definitely a little bit trickier than it used to be. Like before, I would just find like, I don't know, I'd find a t-shirt to the side of the road and it would have good armor stats and you just pick it up and equip it, whereas now you have to get materials and you can level it up that way, so it's a little bit more complicated, but it does make a lot of sense. Also in this patch, lads, the AI has been improved in combat, so like obviously when you're fighting against the enemies, they're a little bit smarter.
They've got good brains.
I won't lie to you guys and say that I massively noticed it. I didn't honestly think it was that bad in the base game, the AI. I mean, it wasn't that bad throughout my playthrough. They seemed competent enough, but supposedly it has been massively upgraded, so I can't complain at that. And lastly, with this patch, lads, there's something that I haven't actually had a chance to try out myself yet throughout my playthrough, but supposedly you can actually get more cyberware, so you can actually go through cyber psychosis. And obviously this is a massive part of the Cyberpunk universe, especially Cyberpunk Edge Runners. That's like a massive plot point in the anime. And apparently if you get too much cyberware, you can actually experience cyber psychosis in this game now, which again I haven't had a chance to see, but that sounds really awesome. It's definitely something I want to do. So yeah, that's pretty much everything this patch has brought, and honestly, like, these are all really cool changes, and it just makes this game so much better. Like, just picturing how this game was at the beginning, you know, during 2020 when it first came out, seeing all the funny glitches and memes of this game, and seeing how it is now, it's night and day. And seriously, if you haven't played this game yet, lads, then you really need to, because I mean, it is genuinely incredible, like the improvements and how good it is now. So yeah, that about sums up everything I wanted to talk about with this game, boys. If you've been playing it, I want to know in the comments. I want to see what you guys think about this game and how much you're enjoying it or not enjoying it. Let me know in the comments. Other than that, boys and girls, if you did enjoy this video, I'd really appreciate if you guys liked it. Subscribe if you're new here, and yeah, I'll see you guys for some more juicy content.